Thank you. First, I want to thank Ward 2 then for having me. My name is Dwight Davis, native Washingtonian, born and raised here. And I'm an educator. I've been an educator. And one of the most difficult decisions that I've ever had to make is to leave education, leaving DCPS. Because I'm an educator at my core, and for 22 years, I've built a career in education. But there comes a point when you realize that there's only so much you can do within the system. That if you want meaningful change, if you want systems and structures to change for the people who live here, you have to ask more of yourself. You have to give more of yourself. And so I'm here. I'm taking everything I learned in the classroom, everything I learned as a school leader, and I'm bringing it to the people, and hopefully to the council. Because the one fundamental thing that we need to understand and acknowledge, our greatest economic engine is our children, right? The next generation. And if we want a future ready, we want a strong DC, we have to invest in those who will build it. I believe the council could benefit from someone who understands what it means to manage 30 students, 50 classrooms, because that translates into oversight of 30 different governmental agencies with 30 different issues. And it matters that someone like myself has spent years talking to community members, working with families, working with students, working with businesses to bring about services. I want the entire community to need. And I believe that matters. That's why I'm not.
Yeah, so you're running for at-large, and then we're going to dive into Ward 2 issues. But yeah, what are the three issues that you really want to focus on, given your experience, and how does your experience connect to those three issues and make you the right person to address those issues?
Sure. I think my experiences are related to those because of my experiences as a school administrator. As a school administrator and as a teacher, relationship building is fundamental. I can't tell you, right, like my first few years as a teacher, I was kind of wingman, but then I learned that the key to truly understanding and helping someone grow and develop is a strong relationship. So I bring that relationship building like this and listen, right? Because during this conversation, I'm going to learn just as much from you in your question as you're going to learn from me. And that's important. The last thing I would say is this, is that for the council, there are three primary responsibilities. There's legislation. Good council members will bring forth legislation. They are responsible for oversight and then budgeting. And as a principal, those three things are still true. As a principal, I was responsible for developing policies that help our school run effectively. Two, I had to oversee all the systems and structures that we built. And then finally, I had to manage a $10 million budget, right?
Yeah.
And that was very difficult because you had to be very strategic about understanding what the school's needs and understanding what you could pay for, right? So I think those skills translate very well.
Yeah. And can you speak to kind of what you've learned and what you might be a good person to help collaborate with other council members?
Yeah.
The at-large people, I think at-large council members in particular, have to collaborate.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna tell you a story.
Right.
So, I taught fifth grade for about 11 years, and I would say about year 5, I had the class, and that is the class that will test your most diligent patients. And honestly, I was at a point where I was like, I need to quit or something because this is not working because this class is testing me. And my principal at the time said, hey, there's this training. I don't want you to attend it because you're one of my better teachers and I need you to be ready for next year. And I thought, okay, what is the training about? He said, it's about home visiting. I said, visiting homes, that's going to help me, right? So I was very skeptical, but I went because I was committed to education. So we do the training. I learned about this one particular mom who really advocated that the teacher visit her, and she talked about how everything changed. I was like, visiting somebody's home is going to make everything change? Like, come on now, right?
Yeah.
So I did the training, and I committed myself to doing home visits. Because the theory is, you visit every child. You don't just visit the children who are giving you issues, right?
Yeah.
What often happens, right? The squeaky wheels in the community often gets the oil. But the concept is, you visit everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Because what that says is that you are someone who cares about everyone, not just the students who are having difficulties or not just the students who are doing well. So, school year starts, I do 26 home visits. And my thinking is that all the children are going to change. I changed,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
With every home that I went to, I learned that one of my students was being raised by 2 grandparents who were also raising 3 other siblings.
Okay. Yeah.
And that the grandfather could hardly walk up to the school to drop her off, let alone come and pick her up.
Yeah.
And I learned that, hey, when I get out of school, if I walk this child home, I can have a conversation with grandfather about what she needs to do for homework, and then she'll have her homework.
Yeah.
I learned about a mom who had 3 jobs. Like, how do you have 3 jobs
Yeah.
and take care of your kids? All of these stereotypes, negative beliefs that I had about my community and the students that I served were being totally challenged and erased.
Yeah.
When you have that type of perspective, you understand that you have to get to know people, you have to understand, you have to build relationships.
Yeah.
And relationships change you. That's the perspective I bring to counseling. Then even as we are having forums and we have, I'll call them my colleagues, I don't call them opponents. It's an opportunity for me to get to know them. Because once you have a human relationship, once you have a relationship, you can find common ground. And I think that's the key, right? Like, I was a professional athlete. I understand competition. But competition doesn't make meaningful change. Relationships make meaningful change. And so my goal is to build strong and growing relationships with members of the council, with my colleagues, because it's only going to be one person who's going to win, but you still want to be able to work with whoever.
Absolutely.
And that's important.
Yeah.
So how do I plan to partner with the
Yeah.
community?
Local community or to address issues, whether, and broadly, small businesses, local ANCs, right?
Yes. So I think first and foremost, so one of the things I did at every school where I worked, first thing I did was I went to the school, I just drove around the neighborhood, particularly when I started working at Wheaton Education Campus, which is in Trinidad. Trinidad is 4 or 5, and there were, say, over 20 murders. It was a hotbed of just negative activity. And I was asked to go work at the school. And the first thing I did was I just drove around the neighborhood. Because I wanted to see, what do the children do? What does the community do? So part one of the answer is just being in the community. And as a matter of fact, I worked for 4 years. I worked at the Watergate, 600 New Hampshire Avenue.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with Ward 6.
Yeah.
And I think being in the community is so important because you can't know a community unless you're in the community. I think that's number one. And I think number 2 is I'm going to be canvassing very hard, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
So I think meeting constituents, meeting neighbors here and talking to them about the issues, like there's no other way that you can learn the community than to talk to the individuals. One of the things I wanted to, I cannot remember the name of the company, the suit store. Yeah, there's a suit store that's been in Ward 2 for over 20, maybe 27 years that is now closing.
Okay.
And one of the things I wanted to do, hopefully after this, is go talk to the owner and just find out, hey, what happened? What led to the closing? Because those insights are so important.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the answer, the short answer is
Be in the community.
being in the
Yeah.
I would say that, I know this might be triggering for some people when you use the P word, pandemic. The pandemic fundamentally reshaped the way in which we live and have our reading, right? And we're still trying to figure this thing out. One of the most interesting questions that I get over and over again, Dwight, how do you feel about Waymo? The automated driving car.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, that's a very interesting question. But it speaks to the fact that the way in which we move around the city, the way in which we do business, is just fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And as a community, not just Board 2, but as a community, Board 1 through 8, we have to figure this out. I think one thing that we can do is work with businesses and leaseholders. And are there ways in which we can incentivize shorter leases? Maybe we can have pop-ups, right? Maybe certain parts of Ward 2 can be known as like pop-up stuff. And, once a month, the different businesses are there, and that gets us more traffic across the city. My point is to say, things are different now, and we have to think differently about how we move, because expecting things to go back to normal, probably not possible.
You also talked earlier about transportation and mobility, and that is a related issue, right, to small businesses. You know, I'm sure it's not uncommon for people to say, I don't go there because there's no parking, right?
Yeah.
I don't go there because I'm gonna get ticketed, right? So transportation mobility, particularly in Ward 2, with density we have, a lot of folks walk, scoot. Waymo, is that what it's called? What policies do you have in mind to support and easy transportation around the city, particularly for our residents in Ward 2?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Like I said, I worked at the Watergate, and everybody walked, right? A lot of people walked.
Yeah.
I think one area that's kind of tricky are the bike lanes, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, bike lanes are great. Like, I'm a bike rider, right? And I love to ride my bike. At the same time, in Ward 2, that might not be as easy, right, as it may be in another ward, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to think about providing residents access to bike lanes, but at the same time, being mindful that we also want people to be able to drive, right? One issue that I hear a lot is, hey, there's no parking because there are a whole bunch of scooters and I can't get a parking spot, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there's simple things that we can do. Like, one thing we can do is, you know, if you're paying attention, the next time you're walking, you pay attention, the ramps are actually painted the same color as the sidewalk. Why aren't they painted like a bright yellow, right? Or why don't we have more designated spots somewhere, someplace else? I think that we can be more accountable, but I also think that we can do simple things to make faces to parks more visible, and so that make them a deterrent so that people who are not supposed to park there won't park. I also think we need to think about our sidewalks. I think we need to make sure our sidewalks are walkable.
Yeah.
There are a number of things I think we could do as it relates to, you know, parking, but but it's tough because in Ward 2 you have residents, you have businesses, and you have a whole bunch of visitors visiting.
Yes.
So it is just a very unique mix of individuals who are here in Ward 2, and we have, like I said before, we just have to think differently and strategically about it.
And Ward 2 is lucky enough to have a number of parks. Unfortunately, Logan Circle, where I live, is closed right now for reasons that we can't control, right? But one of the big transportation issues, staying on this topic, is the 15th Street bike lane that the federal government is proposing to close on the mall. What are your thoughts on that? And what's your experience to kind of work with this kind of, in this environment, right, where we have the federal oversight, DC, home rule at stake? What are your thoughts on getting those channels?
Yeah, I think home rule, we must fight to keep it, and I think statehood is a must. I think all of this federal overreach is putting a huge strain on DC and our ability to make decisions, right? Like, so if we don't fight for statehood, the federal government has been trying to erode the rights of Washingtonians, and that's not right. So we have to fight for statehood. Statehood is a must. And if I didn't mention it at the time, I apologize. Statehood is definitely a must. I think we need to make sure our Attorney General stays independent so that our Attorney General can fight for us. That's number one. That helps us to ensure our own rule. And I think we have to work with regional partners, right? Maryland, Virginia, and all these wonderful organizations here in DC to make sure that that is at the core. Because if we don't fight, it's going to be taken away.
Yeah.
And I do think, you know, like I said, I'm a bike rider. I love to be able to. When I worked at the Watergate, there would be times I would take Broad Street Park and ride all the way down to the office.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's important, right? I also believe that, you know, we need to ensure that Metro and the Metro Rail system is consistent and effective so that the constituents can get to fight, right? So I understand people want to drive. We have one of the better Metro systems, you know. When it rains, it's a little bit
perfect.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's a wonderful system. You can go anywhere in the city. You know, I think we need to make sure that those systems are working for the constituents.
Yeah. Let's talk about public space and quality of life.
Okay.
I think one of the things about Ward 2 is that a lot of folks live in Ward 2 because they want to be out and about, right? They want to be able to walk everywhere. I also think consistently people leave Ward to other parts of the city, like a large community center, things of that nature, right? Large fields to play on. What ideas do you have to address kind of public space, libraries, parks, and community facilities in Ward 2?
Yeah, so I think that there, like you said, we have 2 universities right here.
Yeah.
I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us to partner with those universities to gain access to their fields. Right?
Yeah.
Like there are so many schools that use university fields for activities of the sort.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful opportunity there. I also think that the services that we have here, like the libraries we have here, we need to make sure that they are clean, that they are effectively run, right? That their services are not world class. Because one of the things that I like to say is that DC has so much already, right? We have to ensure that what we have now is working efficiently and effectively for the constituents.
Yeah.
And that is all about oversight. And the way in which goes back to relationships. If we are communicating and having the conversations and we are in the communities, then those issues rise to the top and we can resolve them. But I think as it relates to fields in particular, I think there are opportunities to partner with some of the universities, colleges here. I also think that there are opportunities to prioritize certain spaces for field use as well.
The second thing in that question too is housing, right? Affordability is an issue all across the city. You also have this issue of folks being not only priced out, but sized out. When I say sized out, it is when the family grows, they move someplace else.
Yeah.
And we're lucky when they stay in the city, but too often folks move to Virginia or Maryland, straight from Ward 2, because they're looking for a bigger place to live. There's 2 issues there. One is this, what policies do you have in mind to address affordable housing here in Ward 2?
Sure.
And as an at-large council member, what ideas and policies do you have to keep people in the city?
When I talk to some Ward 2 and Ward 3 residents, one of the things that I hear is that, hey, we have vouchers and it's not working out well. I think there's an individual who could benefit from wraparound services, and because we're not finding ways to live together in community, right?
Yeah.
And that happens, right? I understand that. I do think that there are opportunities for vouchers to work. I think that there are opportunities to prioritize people who work in the city. For example, teachers, firemen, police officers, right? I think there's an opportunity to say, hey, if you work in the city and you are committed to the city, hey, we want to find a way to help you get into one of these places that may be overpriced for you.
Yeah.
And for this many years of service, we will cut this deal for you. And what that does is, so let's say we have 10 police officers who qualify for this program. Let's say 5 police officers, 3 teachers, and 2 firewomen or whatever. That makes the community more cohesive, right? Because the people who are serving the community actually live in the community like it was back when I was 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a phenomenal program for us to bring here because it provides affordability, right? And it brings community cohesion. Now, I have 4 boys, 4 big boys, and I'm fortunate, like I live in Ward 5, so I have a bigger house, and I understand. My big issue is, I understand like your family is growing, and it's, I can't do anything about that. But what I do want to happen is, I don't want Washingtonians to have to leave the city.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to go to another ward because there's a bigger house, that's fine. Stay in the city, right?
Yeah.
And I understand that we want Ward 2 residents to be able to stay in Ward 2. I think the tension is, but if I have a family of 8 and either we prioritize monies for you to help build an addition onto your home.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we can have something like that says, hey, you want to stay here, you need more space. Maybe we have certain loans that allow you to build, right? But there are going to be some instances where family's just too big. We need to get a big, that's just reality.
Yeah.
However, my priority is like, hey, I don't want you to have to leave the city. We need to keep all our Washingtonians here if we can.
One of the things that you said earlier, that as a principal in your background, you have experience in holding people accountable to get results.
Yeah.
So either give me a story where you've done that is meaningful that you can hear about, or how you might do that role when you become council member.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. So my first principalship, I'm the young guy with all these great ideas, right? And I have this great idea about how we can utilize certain people in the building to help strengthen ELA instruction. Because, if a child learns to read, their career trajectory is exponentially better, right? There are actually studies that show that if you read at 6th grade level, you will make about $60,000 per year. And with each grade level, your earnings go up. So I had this phenomenal idea, like great guy, phenomenal idea. I thought it up myself, had all this stuff. We went to implement it in the trash, right? Why? Because I didn't talk to the teachers about the idea. I didn't bring the idea to the teachers for them to refine it and tell us I didn't ask them what they thought.
Yeah.
Right? So accountability starts with leadership and being able to say, hey, the data says we have this problem. What do you all think we need to do about it? Because that's where it starts, right? Yeah. I'm not the holder of all the answers, right? My job is to examine the data and identify the problem and say, hey, I see this problem. Do you see that problem too? Yeah. Oh, we both see the problem? How do we solve this problem? That's leadership and accountability because you have buy-in, right? So I think number one is how you hold people accountable is you look at the data. And you look at the data, but you also inspect what you expect. So if I'm looking at school data, I need to be visiting schools. If I'm looking at police data, I need to be visiting the communities, right? I need to be in the streets analyzing and talking to people and saying, hey, I see this issue. Do you see the issue? How do we solve the issue? And from there, we build solutions. That's where accountability is, right? Now, if we say that the problem is, too many cars are parked on the left side of the street, and we say we're going to move cars to the right side of the street, I need to be inspecting that. And if it's not happening, guess what's going to happen? We're going to drop the hammer, right? Yeah. That is the final part of accountability. You walk the talk and talk the walk, because you can't talk and not do anything. You have to act. So that's how I propose to take my leadership experience and translate it into work on the council. Okay. Yeah.
Last question. You raised 4 children in the city.
Yeah.
I'm raising 2.
Okay.
I grew up in the city.
Okay.
So did you.
As did I, yeah.
Right? Education is an issue that we haven't quite solved yet from the school.
Yeah.
And the bar is being the best in the country, right? The bar is
world class.
Yeah. I think most people will say we're not there yet. Mm-hmm. If you had a magic wand, that could fix 3 things, what would those 3 things be to make DC a world-class education?
I'm going to take it back to Despicable Me.
Okay.
You know how Gru's always developing all these weapons and stuff? Yeah. I would have an empathy cannon.
Okay.
Right? And the reason why I say an empathy cannon is because I think sometimes we forget we're all human. And what I mean by that is the issues of Ward 2 are the issues of Ward 8, are the issues of Ward 1, are the issues of Ward 5, right? Yeah. They may look a little different, right? But we all have similar issues. There's homelessness in Ward 2. Guess what? 5, 6, 7, 8 as well, right? And sometimes I think we are able to fantasize sometimes about what people are really going through. Let me give you an example, right? Have you ever lived in a shelter? It's not as simple as just go to the shelter, right? We have to remember, when we see young people in the street and we want to look at them negatively, that's somebody's child, right? Yeah. I raised 4 boys, right? So when I see a group of young men, 4 of those boys could be my son. Yeah, so how am I going to approach them, right? I think fundamentally that's where we need to start. I think number 2, in the same vein, we really need to think about the services that we are providing for our young people beyond the school.
Okay.
Curfew zones are I wouldn't even say a quick fix. I think they are a technical response to an adaptive problem. And what I mean by that is, it's just a Band-Aid on a wound that needs stitches, right? Because some people see that as children being bad and disrespectful. I see it as children saying, I need help. Sometimes I don't feel safe. And in this area, I'm safe. So is the problem the children, or is the problem the access to resources and the safety, right? Yeah. So one, I would spread the empathy. I think two, we need to think about the services that we provide for our youth. And I'm gonna stay in the educational vein. I think we need to leverage the way in which we think about the summertime, right? Because the youth have 6 to 8 weeks, right? And for a lot of youth, there's not a lot of structure. But if we could figure out ways to partner with businesses and companies and think about AI and think about, we have 4 different sports teams. Are there opportunities to work with these teams to teach skills, not just about sports, but about business, about entrepreneurship? Like DC is so resource rich.
Yes.
I just don't feel like we're utilizing our resources in a way that benefits us in the most productive way. But I think our strongest economic engine is our youth, right? And we have to invest in those who will build our future economy. So that's why.
Thanks again for sitting down with me and Ward 2 Democrat and sharing their vision for the city.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.